Hi guys, and welcome to the Stephen King Sematary Club. Hi guys, welcome back to the Haunted Valley. Today is part 5 of The Shining, so this is the final part. And it is called Matters of Life and Death. Chapter 38 is Florida. And Dick Hallorann is working at his off-season Florida hotel where he's the head chef. And he has made out a will. He just felt this urge to make out a will. And he has gone shopping to pick up a small amount of food for the hotel. And he's been smelling oranges because he has oranges in his car that he just bought. But while he is driving down the freeway, I think he's going like 50 or 60 miles an hour, he all of a sudden gets hit with Danny's message. So when we last saw Danny, he was in the ballroom. He was trying to call Dick and tell him to come help. It's a pretty stressful scene because Dick is pretty much zoned out and he is driving a car and he just kind of drifts across traffic because he can't control it. So he ends up pulling over. He gets a couple more of Danny's messages and he decides he has to book a flight to Colorado to save the Torrance family, mostly Danny. And he requests time off from his boss. He makes up a story about his son getting shot and he has to go see him. And his boss lets him go. He books a flight and he misses it. He's speeding on the way to the airport and a cop stops him. So he misses his flight just barely. Chapter 39 is on the stairs. Danny talks to Wendy and he says, quote, "It wants all of us. It's tricking Daddy. It's fooling him, trying to make him think it wants him the most. It wants me the most, but it will take all of us." On page 339. So Danny knows that the hotel wants them. And Wendy believes Danny completely. And also she has grabbed and stashed a kitchen knife. So they have a knife at their disposal. And I don't know why she doesn't take all of the knives. That's what I would do. And you'll see later that she probably should have done that. Chapter 40 is in the basement. So Jack has forgotten to dump the boiler. And when he goes over, when he remembers, because he's going through papers and he's just single-mindedly absorbed in this work. And when he goes to the boiler, it's registering at 210. And I believe Watson had said that he wouldn't stand next to it if it was past 180. So it's, it's really dangerous at this time. Quote, "Suddenly a cold and tempting inner voice spoke to him. Let it go. Go get Wendy and Danny and get the fuck out of here. Let it blow sky high." That's on page 342. So Jack starts thinking about his life insurance policy, which if he dies in a horrible accident, he gets more money that way. Well, he doesn't get more money. Wendy and Danny would get the money. So this is like his last chance, his last idea of how to make things work, how to make things right for them. But then he snaps out of it because he is the caretaker and he is very serious about this job. So he dumps the boiler and he thinks that since he saved the Overlook would reward him with a drink. He's certain of this. Chapter 41 is daylight. So Danny and Wendy are holed up together and Danny tries to reach out for his father and he's trying to see what's going on in his mind, see what he's doing, that kind of thing. And on page 349, while Danny is trying to poke and prod, a voice yells at him, "Get out of his mind, you little shit." So the hotel is starting to fight back. So Danny tries to leave their living quarters, and a man in a dog costume with red eyes and blood smeared all over his face, his mouth, his chin, and his cheeks. he blocks him. He's barking and he's turning around, doing weird little dog, all four prancing around stuff. So Danny ends up retreating to the living quarters. He doesn't attempt to get past the dog after a while. Chapter 42 is mid-air. So Dick has finally gotten a flight, and on takeoff, he gets another message from Danny that's abruptly cut off by the overlook. So Danny had been trying to send Dick another message, and right in the middle of it, the hotel just managed to stop the communication from going out. So like a radio or something. The hotel has decided, nope, you are done communicating with the outside world, and it snapped it off. So the overlook is getting excessively powerful. Chapter 43 is drinks on the house. So Jack has gotten he did get a drink. The hotel did reward him with his drink. He's in the Colorado Lounge again. Quote, all the hotel's eras were together now, all but this current one, the Torrance era, and this would be together with the rest very soon now. That's on page 356. So there's this idea of parallel time dimensions. So like everything that's happened in the hotel is happening simultaneously, and there are bits and pieces coming through the like gauzy fabric of time. So even though Jack is nervous that the hotel wants Danny, as soon as he starts drinking, he's just chill. He's okay with it. Chapter 44 is conversations at the party. So Jack is drunk. He meets Delbert Grady, and he has a conversation with him. A lot of it is reminiscent of the movie. Jack sees a mechanical dome clock, and it's kind of like a cuckoo clock, but not really. And when the hour strikes or whatever, two little figures come out. One is a father figure and one is a son. And the father has a mallet, and he starts beating the son with the mallet. And real blood starts spraying the inside of this domed, kind of like a bell jar, I think. And pretty soon you can't even see inside anymore because the glass is entirely clouded with blood and like little chunks of probably hair and skull and skin. Jack is a mess. He's a drunk mess. There are no more people. He's alone. Quote, loneliness surged over him suddenly and completely. He cried out with sudden wretchedness and honestly wished he were dead. That's on page 371. Chapter 45 is Stapleton Airport, Denver. There's a huge snowstorm. Dick lands and he begins the terrifying drive in the snow to get to the Overlook Hotel, which is quite a journey. Chapter 46 is Wendy. So Wendy takes the knife that she's hidden and she goes down to fix lunch. She and Danny had heard Jack talking all morning. Occasionally they heard bits of other conversations. Other people are talking and singing, etc. And it's kind of like a radio, where it would be like not a very stable station. So you would hear bits and pieces as it cuts in and out. And she finds Jack passed out in the Colorado Lounge. He grabs her ankle and he tries to strangle her. So as he's strangling Wendy, Danny jumps on his back. Danny comes from the middle of nowhere, but you know, he sees this stuff happening in his mind, so he knows he has to get down there and help his mom. So Jack throws Danny aside. Wendy manages to grab a large wine bottle that's used for decorations, like centerpieces, where you put the candle in and light the candle and the wax comes down. And she hits Jack on the head, knocks him out. So she and Danny carry him into the pantry and deposit him and lock him in. Chapter 47 is Danny. So they go back up to the bedroom, Danny and Wendy, and they can still hear Jack in the bedroom, like, because the kitchen is, you know, just below them. And the elevator is running again, and they start hearing other voices. So they're very on edge. Chapter 48 is Jack. So Jack is stuck in the pantry, locked in. and he starts thinking about his current situation, and he blames Danny and Wendy for conspiring against him, for, you know, disrespecting him, for being, you know, terrible, terrible people that need correction. And he even starts believing that his father was right when he beat Jack's mom. So Grady starts talking to him from the other side of the pantry, and Grady kind of goads him and needles him a little bit, and then he lets Jack out to finish the business that needs to be finished, which is, you know, killing Wendy and Danny. So as Jack enters the kitchen after being let out of the pantry, he sees a martini glass with some alcohol to make a martini, and a roque mallet is just laying there waiting for Jack to use it. Chapter 49 is Hallorann going up the country. So Hallorann has rented a car, and he's driving in the snow. He's not a great winter driver, but he can manage. And he almost gets hit by a plow coming from the other direction because he's a little bit over the line. I don't know if you guys are from an area that gets snow, but we get tons of snow here. And those plows go at high speeds. And there's a sharp drop off. There's just a cliff on the right side. So when he escapes hitting the plow, he almost goes over the edge, but he doesn't. Quote, "And that was where the car stopped, canting forward at a 30-degree angle, the left fender jammed against a guardrail, the rear wheels nearly off the ground." Page 402. So the plow guy is really nice. He puts Dick back on the road. He hauls the car out with a chain, and he gives him his mittens to wear, and he wants them returned. And he gives Dick the name of a guy who will rent him a snowmobile at a discounted rate in Sidewinder. So Dick resumes his drive, which is nerve-wracking, and yes, winter driving in the snow, especially when you can't see in front of you, is super nerve-wracking. And they're skidding. It's a very accurate depiction. And as he is nearing Sidewinder, the hotel breaks into his thoughts like it does with Danny, where it can like send him messages and images, and it warns Dick away with these terrible images of murder, and Dick nearly crashes. So it's like the hotel is trying to get him to not come any further. The hotel is trying to scare him away. Chapter 50 is Redrum. So Wendy goes to check on Jack, which I don't know if that was the best idea, but she is convinced that he is out of the pantry, which he is. And it's a very tense scene with, you know, her expecting him to jump out and get her. And it's just one of those things, like when you're alone in the house and you're kind of worried that someone is going to jump out and get you. It's that kind of thing. And Jack attacks her. He hits her with the mallet, the roque mallet, in her stomach. He hits her in the ribs and breaks some of them. And he hits her underneath. He hits her below the knee. And she has her knife, and she stabs Jack in the lower back all the way up to the knife's handle. And she starts struggling back up the stairs to get back to Danny. And she's really having a hard time. She's having to drag herself, pull herself along because she's very, very hurt. And Jack all of a sudden speaks. Jack says, quote, "You bitch, you killed me," on page 415. And I always really liked that, you know, the "you killed me." It reminds me of when Hamlet says, "I'm dead, Horatio," and then Jack starts after Wendy. So it's a race of, you know, two injured, very injured people. Chapter 51 is Hallorann arrives. So Hallorann gets the snowmobile from the guy, and the guy also gives him his parka and a ski mask, which is very nice. And this is happening at the same time that Jack is talking to Grady. So Jack is in the pantry and he's talking to Grady. This is happening at the same time as that. So Hallorann is getting much closer to the Overlook. He starts off on the snowmobile. It's much easier to drive a snowmobile in the wintertime than it is a car in the mountain roads. And when he gets near the Overlook, one of the hedge lions has decided it's time to come out and play. So it roars and it bats at Hallorann and hurts him, and it starts tossing him around, and he's playing with them like a cat would play with a mouse. Chapter 52 is Wendy and Jack. This is where Jack says the infamous, "I'm gonna bash your brains in." So he is still coming up the stairs after Wendy, and he lands a blow between Wendy's shoulder blades, and it breaks something very important, and she is just horribly broken at that point. So she manages to make it to the bedroom of, their living quarters. She manages to make it to the bedroom and locks the door behind her. And Danny is nowhere to be found. He's not in the room anymore. So Jack is starting to hit the door with the mallet, and he breaks it, makes a hole in it, and unlocks the door. So Wendy goes further into the room and she hides in the bathroom, locks that. So Jack, he breaks a hole in that, and she finds some razor blades and starts slashing at his hands anytime he reaches in to try and unlock the door. And as they are fighting, there is a noise described as an insectile sound, which is Dick Hallorann's snowmobile. So Jack has to abandon what he's doing and go take care of Hallorann. So he leaves. Wendy is safe for now, and she gets out of the bathroom. She's going to go find Danny, but she passes out. She passes out from all the pain. And so she just kind of collapses in the midst of this bedroom that Danny had seen in that vision, where Jack just totally goes berserk and destroys everything in that room. Upends things, breaks things, throws things. He's so angry when he can't get into the bathroom to get Wendy. Chapter 53 is Hallorann Laid Low. So Hallorann has a gas can attached to the snowmobile, and he douses the hedge lion with the gasoline, and he takes out a Zippo lighter and he shoves the lighter into the side of the animal. Quote, "In an instant the whole creature was in flames, a prancing, writhing pyre on the snow. It bellowed in rage and pain, seeming to chase its flashing tail as it zigzagged away from Hallorann," on page 430. So Hallorann runs into the hotel, avoiding the other hedge animals, and he gets ambushed by Jack. Jack hits him in the head, but the mallet kind of, the blow is cushioned a little bit by the parka hood that he's wearing. And then when Hallorann turns around, Jack whacks him on the side of the face and knocks him out. 54 is Tony. So Danny meets Tony in like the deepest recesses of his psyche, and Tony is pretty much Daniel Anthony Torrance. He it's kind of like his older self, and Danny all of a sudden realizes what's coming for him, what has been haunting him that he has not been allowed to see. Quote, "It was hiding behind Daddy's face. It was imitating Daddy's voice. It was wearing Daddy's clothes, but it was not his daddy." Page 437. So Danny is trying to escape because, Jack is now on his way up to get Danny. And Danny tries to run up into the attic, but it's padlocked. So he's trapped on the very top floor, and he's waiting to face the Overlook-controlled Jack thing. Chapter 55, That Which Was Forgotten. So Danny is relieved that this thing that's chasing him doesn't really look like his dad. It resembles his father, but it doesn't look like him. And Danny says, quote, "You're a mask, just a false face. The only reason the hotel needs to use you is that you aren't as dead as the others. But when it's done with you, you won't be anything at all. You don't scare me." Page 443. And then Danny goes on to say, quote, "You're it. Not my daddy. You're the hotel. And when you get what you want, you won't give my daddy anything because you're selfish. And my daddy knows that. You had to make him drink the bad stuff. That's the only way you could get him, you lying false face. Page 445. And then there's this really great passage. Quote, the face in front of him changed. It was hard to say how. There was no melting or merging of the features. The body trembled slightly, and then the bloody hands opened like broken claws. The mallet fell from them and thumped to the rug. That was all. But suddenly his daddy was there, looking at him in mortal agony and a sorrow so great that Danny's heart flamed within his chest. The mouth drew down in a quivering bow. Doc, Jack Torrance said, run away, quick, and remember how much I love you. So, I really like that part. It's very sad. It's the whole thing where Jack, it's not completely his fault. He's basically being possessed and used, and they, kind of like a virus in your computer, they knew that if they got Jack drunk, that he would be easy to manipulate, and it was like their entry point for this whole thing. And it's, Jack has a disease. He's an alcoholic, so I really feel bad that his vulnerability is what causes this massive destruction of his family, and he is a participant, and he has to go through with this, but it's not entirely his fault. So this Jack thing, he uses the mallet on himself, and he starts beating his own face with it to destroy any resemblance to Jack Torrance. So he completely ruins the Jack Torrance image. And, quote, when it turned its attention back to Danny, his father was gone forever, on page 446. And Danny all of a sudden remembers what it is that has been forgotten. It's the boiler. So Danny yells that it hasn't been dumped since earlier that morning, and that means that the entire place is going to blow up. So the Jack thing immediately has to turn its attention to the boiler, and it goes from the very top floor all the way down to the basement, screaming, super pissed off, and has to go dump the boiler. Chapter 56 is the explosion. Wendy, Dick, and Danny have all met up. Wendy has gone and found Dick crumpled up on the floor. She revives him, and Danny runs downstairs and sees them, and they all, make plans to leave because of the impending explosion. And Danny has grabbed some clothes for Wendy, but they still aren't dressed for the weather. They all run outside just in time, and then the explosion. The Jack thing is too late to dump the boiler. His hands are on the wheel of the thing to release the pressure, and he just he thinks he made it in time, but it was too much for the hotel, and it just explodes. Chapter 57 is Exit. So there's this awesome destruction of the hotel. It's very detailed. There's a lot of imagery that's really cool in it. So Wendy, Danny, and Hallorann are trying to make their escape. They take the snowmobile to the equipment shed to get blankets so that everyone can be a little warmer. And on the way, no one is seeing this except for Hallorann. Quote, from the window of the presidential suite, he thought he saw a huge dark shape issue, blotting out the snowfield behind it. For a moment, it assumed the shape of a huge, obscene manta, and then the wind seemed to catch it, to tear it, and shred it like old dark paper. It fragmented, was caught in a whirling eddy of smoke, and a moment later it was gone as if it had never been. Now it's on page 454. So whatever dark energy was in the hotel Dick saw it go away. But did it get destroyed? Is it still out there? I don't know. So they get to the equipment shed, and Danny says he can't go inside. And Dick goes in and notices that one of the roque mallets is gone. He grabs the blankets, and then he starts thinking about roque and the mallets, and all of a sudden he's starting to get annoyed with Wendy and Danny, and he's starting to feel murdery. Like he might want to kill them with these little roque mallets that are in this shed. And I really like that. I really like the fact that the Overlook still has so much power that it could possibly turn Dick, who just risked his life to save these people, make him want to kill them. So everything was for nothing. So he gets his ass out of there, and they take off on the snowmobile. And on the way, they are close to Sidewinder and a search party of snowmobilers, including the doctor that they went to, Dr. Edmonds. They are rescued. Chapter 58 is Epilogue / Summer. So this is summer in Maine. Dick is working at a new hotel, like a little resort hotel, and Wendy and Danny are his guests. And they are going to move to Maryland. Al Shockley has offered Wendy a job out there, and she has accepted. And it's very touching. Danny and Dick have this great conversation alone together, and you know, Danny asks if Dick will be his friend, and Dick says, you know, for as long as you want me, I'll be your friend. And you know, Danny's sad about his dad and about what has happened, and you know, Dick says, well, let me tell you some things about life. Terrible things will happen, and you know, if you need to cry, go ahead and cry, and you know, I'll always be there for you if you need me. So they have their little bond is strengthened, and I love it. This really is one of my favorite Stephen King books. It's so good. I love the characters. I love the character development. I love the relationship between Dick and Danny, and I just am so fascinated by the Overlook itself and the power it has, and all the allusions to wasps and deep secret creepy insectile things. So I highly recommend this book. Definitely go out and read it if you haven't read it. Please do yourself a favor. It's so good. So good. I will see you next week. Have a spooky day.